My name is the Reverend Terry Williams. I live at 47.5 East Main Street here in the city of Chillicothe, and I'm here to speak on two small matters. First, I'll reserve my comments about the public camping ordinance for the committee meeting or communication with Chair Bennett. You've been fantastic in communicating. I did just want to lift up a piece of language that this ordinance, as it's been presented in documentation, says it's a public camping ordinance. And tonight you refer to it as a homeless ordinance. I think it's really important for us to understand that if that ordinance is intended to target homeless individuals, it puts it in a very different class, and it puts it into a targeted class that the Constitution has something to say. So I really hope that we are not looking at this as just a backdoor way to criminalize homeless people in particular. That language is really important. The second piece that I have to ask just a little question about is you have on your agenda today the third reading of this temporary moratorium. That third reading, to my knowledge, there hasn't been an amendment of the ordinance, and it still rests with emergency language. So according to the rules of council, any vote on an item that has emergency language in it fails without 7 members voting aye. And there only being 6 members here, I'm interested to know whether you're going to table that and wait for another time, or whether you're just going to vote it down tonight.
On November 25th, we removed the emergency language from the item.
So it just hasn't been removed from the public
Correct.
item that's been sent out by the clerk?
Correct.
Okay, all right, that's good to know.
Yeah, and also the emergency language requires 6, waiving the 3 read rule requires 9, or 7.
Not according to Rule 11, you still have to have 7 for the emergency.
We're not going to debate it right now because I think we've already figured this out. If it's not there, we're not going to go through that whole discussion. But thank you for the information, because we appreciate it. We appreciate the comments everybody makes at this time. So next.
I was hoping that Auditor Spetnagel would be here. One of the questions I had was what the anticipated carryover balance in the general fund would be. I'm not sure, is that something that you all have knowledge of, or any anticipated number of?
We can get you that. We can get you that information.
I'll
make a note to get it to you.
I would imagine that there is going to be a carryover. The city has been doing well the last several years, and Mayor Feeney has made note of that frequently, how the city is in a good financial position. And I suppose it's in a good financial position. There are $120,000 in expenditures that are on the agenda for tonight to be discussed. I guess we can get into the weeds of whether city residents should be giving $50,000 to the Humane Society or $40,000 to the Hope Partnership Program, even though it's a grant. We could argue about that, or $30,000 for disc golf. I think what concerned me most is the tax increase, the income tax increase that was proposed. Is that wasn't talked about, that didn't come out of a committee?
That came out of the Finance Committee.
Okay.
And that Dustin's in charge of that committee, and he's not available to be here tonight.
Okay, so that did come out of the committee.
Yes.
Okay. And is that a renewal of a 0.2%?
That is a renewal, yes. And it would also be the way the language is currently worded, it is for a 10-year again and not for a permanent.
Okay.
Which was a discussion point also that we had.
And so you don't have to renew it, is that correct? You wouldn't have to do that?
We don't renew it. That is a resolution that goes to the voters.
And I understand
vote on
that,
it.
but the council is the one that pushes that forward to the voters. The council could say, yes, we're not going to renew this because we're in a financial position where we don't need to further tax the citizens of Chillicothe and further, especially in the economy that we're in, the inflation that we're in. Is that's correct, that this council could say we're not going to move that forward?
That is correct, and that's what we'll be voting on here at the third reading of it.
Well, yeah, and it's emergency language. Is there a reason why it's emergency language on that?
It's got to go on the ballot
right
by the time for the primary. So to get the 3 read and then make it go into effect immediately was why it'd be emergency
so
language.
it's a timing thing that the council didn't get to it early enough, basically, that now it's an emergency?
No, that would be incorrect. But this is not time for debate. We'll get you any answers though if you want to, get.
I'm just trying to understand why it's emergency and why it can't go through the full process that a typical ordinance or legislation goes through.
Emergency language means that when it passes, it doesn't have to go through the 30-day process. Is that,
I
just wanted to clarify that.
understand that, I'm just one, typically stuff has to go through that 30-day process, right? You don't do emergency language on everything, I'm just trying to understand why, because there's another, the Humane Society money is also emergency language, and just trying to understand why that's emergency, but the disc golf is an emergency. So just trying to understand, and this has been an ongoing thing that I've had with the council about the use of emergency language, how they use it, why they use it, all that kind of stuff. I'm not here to debate, I'm here to raise the question of concern. I'm here to raise the question of concern that if we do have a carryover balance, which I assume that we do, is it the right thing to do to continue to tax taxpayers and continue to increase taxes, especially given the economy that we're in, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just have to push the button right into it all.
Good evening, Doug McCord, 565 West Fifth Street. I am here to encourage everybody on this council to please, I hope you vote yes for the item number 1 concerning the temporary moratorium on the marijuana dispensary. Ms. McKeever and Ms. Penn, I thank you for your communication with me. You guys have been very good on communicating with me on this. I hope everybody in town understands that this is temporary and that this gives you guys some breathing room to grapple with something that's just came down the pike. This is huge, I mean, for a town this size. And to me, I feel like all of Ross County has one liquor store. And we all seem to get along pretty well with one liquor store. I think we can get along well with one marijuana dispensary. It's the one that's out on Bridge Street seems to be working, and it seems to be working well. I didn't plan on going in deep into the woods on some other things I wanted to say tonight, but some of the other topics that have been brought up, if after I finish, if I could also submit my written material to council. I'm glad to see that you're taking like a proactive stance on the dispensary. To at least put the brakes on just for a second, get a handle on things and see what we really need in a town of 20,000 people when it comes to marijuana. I hope that you'll also try to make a proactive approach on the secondary marijuana businesses that are in town, the ones that operate under the Farm Bill. The one that's been in the news, Western Avenue Exotics, where they were actually trying to sell bona fide marijuana, and thank goodness for our police here in town that they put a stop to that. They were cited for that, or arrested for that, or cited for that, whatever. We've got, I've told this to the council before, we've got 13 recovery councils, 13 recovery centers in Chillicothe. Do we know, they all seem to be operating on a for-profit business model. Do we know how successful they are? Do we regulate where they're being put in town? The secondary marijuana businesses, are we going to regulate where they're being put in town? How many are we going to tolerate of those? I just want you to know, there's a recovery center on Western Avenue called Cardinal Recovery. It sits 250 feet away from Western Avenue Exotics. That's the place that got busted for selling pot. These drugs that these people are dealing with are horrendous. They're incredibly addictive, and just if something is so readily accessible to these people who are trying to get well, to just walk across the street to get a pipe, to get that secondary marijuana, now does the whole addiction process start all over again. Chillicothe Treatment Center services is at 606 Central Center. They are 500 feet away from the same secondary marijuana store. They're also just 600 feet away from Smoker Friendly, which is where I go to buy my mom her cigarettes, and I can tell you they're not about just cigarettes anymore. So there's this juxtaposition of these recovery centers and these secondary, we used to call them head shops. I was born in 1959, I know all this stuff. I went through it. But these head shops and these recovery centers so close together, and so many of them, in so many places, and where I feel they should be. So I hope you'll take a proactive approach to those businesses also, because we've got to.
You've got a minute left.
A minute left. Real quick, okay, the Chillicothe, or the Ross County Community Action that's out on Eastern Avenue, from what I've read on its face, it looks like they're doing a good job. I'd rather see $50,000 go to them instead of the Humane Society. I got this, if you want. Thank you very much.
Thank you.